Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to all participants to the session of Disability in the 2030 Agenda and the SDGs. This session is co-organized with Disability Hub Europe and inspired in the key principle of the 2030 Agenda of Leave No One Behind. My name is Teresa Arroyo. I coordinate the DHub, the European initiative led by Fundación ONCE and co-funded by the European Social Fund, to foster social and labor inclusion of people with disabilities in Europe while promoting inclusive and sustainable businesses. I hope all of you can hear me clear and loud. Let me share some PowerPoint presentation with you. Today we have an agenda very interesting. We are pleased to count with the presence of representatives of different organizations, such as Maria Tusi, Director of European Programs Unit at Fundación ONCE, Carla Bonino, CSR and Sustainability Head of Unit at Fundación ONCE, Stefan Trommel, Senior Disability Specialist at ILO GBDN, the International Labour Organization Global Business Disability Network, Thijs Goyten, Head of Policy at Global Reporting Initiative, Margaret Johnson-Clark, Global Diversity and Inclusion VP at L'Oréal, Inmaculada Placencia, Senior Expert Disability Inclusion Unit at the European Union, Hayden Hammersley, Social Policy Officer at the European Disability Forum. Thank you all. It is a pleasure that you are here with us this afternoon.
Live streaming is on.
Go ahead.
Okay, so welcome back, everyone. We had some technical problems. We start with the presentation of Carla Bonino, the project Disability Hub Europe. Please, Carla, if you can see my screen, you can go ahead. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Teresa. I would like to start by presenting Disability Hub Europe, the initiative that promotes this session that we are having at the SDG
Hallo,
Summit.
ik ben in de CSR Summit.
I'm hearing somebody.
Dan laat ik je met rust.
Is het heel dringend?
Nee, volop vanochtend, maar
Ja.
spreek me later.
Oké.
Succes.
Ja, tot zo. Ja.
Hello?
Please, could you all mute your microphone, please? Except Carla. Carla, go ahead. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So I was saying that I would like to introduce Disability Hub Europe as the umbrella project promoting this session in the SDG Summit organized by CSR Europe. Disability Hub Europe is a multi-stakeholder engagement initiative aimed at promoting the potential of the binomial disability and sustainability. The final goal of DHub, this is how I will refer in short to Disability Hub Europe, is to foster a social and labor inclusion of people with disabilities in Europe, estimated to be 10 million people, while promoting inclusive and sustainable businesses. DHub is led by Fundación ONCE and co-funded by the European Social Fund, as it was mentioned before. And there are 7 partners, including the ONCE Foundation, which are CSR Europe, the organizer of this event, Global Reporting Initiative, ILO through its Global Business and Disability Network, the European Disability Forum, L'Oréal, the multinationals L'Oréal and Dow. And Disability Hub Europe is aligned with the 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals themselves, particularly SDG 8, 10, and 17. And in the end, it seeks to promote, to contribute to this concept of inclusive economy. Next slide, please. As we all know, we have just passed the 5th anniversary of the 2030 Agenda on September the 25th. And this is an occasion to remind that disability is part of the 2030 Agenda. People with disabilities are recognized as a vulnerable group, which applies horizontally to the agenda. The human rights approach of the UN Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disability is included in the agenda. And what is more, disability is specifically mentioned in various of the SDGs, such as SDG 4 on education, SDG 8 on decent work, SDG 10 on reducing inequalities, SDG 11 on sustainable communities, and SDG 17 on partnership for the goals. And the key principle of the 2030 agenda, which is to leave no one behind, actually needs the consideration of people with disabilities, 1 billion people in the world, if it is to be achieved. Next slide, please. With our partner, the European Disability Forum, we have just launched a paper comparing data of people with and without disability and at EU level, organized according to the different SDGs. And I would just like to compare a couple of data. If we take SDG 8, for example, on decent work, we see how in 2018, the employment rate of people with disabilities was 50% versus 75% for people without disabilities. If we look, for example, at SDG 4 related to education, we see how in 2018, only 29% of people with disabilities received tertiary education compared to 43% of people without disabilities. So as UN General Secretary said, COVID-19 is intensifying the inequalities people with disabilities face under normal circumstances. So the challenges are even bigger after the pandemic as regards people with disabilities. Next slide, please. Now, if we look at how to approach sustainability and disability from a business perspective, a first idea is to recognize people with disabilities as stakeholders from a wide perspective. This means they can be employees, consumers, together with their families, where the accessibility issue of products and services becomes relevant. They can be suppliers, they can be employers, they can be investors as well, and they are for sure members of the community. When we look at sustainability and disability, this relates to different issues such as diversity and inclusion, business and human rights, corporate social responsibility, non-financial reporting, social innovation. And from DHub, we have approached these different issues with some relevant milestones that I would like to share because they link to the participation of the following speakers. Next slide, please. So one area of work has been non-financial reporting with the launch of the guide Disability and Sustainability Reporting, produced together with GRI. We have also, as a group of as DHub partners, issued a position paper on the revision of the Directive on Non-Financial Reporting. We have also looked at trends, current trends, such as the future of work, producing a publication with ILO, which is called Making the Future of Work Inclusive of People with Disabilities. And we're currently working on one of the trends, which is digital transformation, and see how this this digital economy can be also inclusive of people with disabilities. And for sure, what we do all the time is we exchange and disseminate best practice on disability inclusion by companies and organizations hand in hand with partners and collaborating entities, as is the case of L'Oréal. And I would just like to finish by sharing three main ideas. Next slide, please. And they are that disability is part of the 2030 Agenda and the SDGs, that sustainability involves a social dimension that includes people with disabilities, and that if we want to leave no one behind, people with disabilities and accessibility need to be considered in the decade of action to achieve the goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Carla, for the presentation of the Disability Hub Europe and all the interesting results that you have obtained so far. Just a quick reminder about accessibility, which is provided in this session through a link to Zoom. You don't need to exit this session. You just need to open the Zoom in parallel, and you can find the link in the chat. The passcode is 227964. And our next panelist is Stefan Trommel, a Senior Disability Specialist at the ILO GBDN. Stefan will share that companies and institutions should do what they should do to ensure that an inclusive future of work of persons with disabilities. Stefan, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Teresa, and thank you for inviting the ILO and the ILO Global Business Disability Network to this event. As Carla was mentioning, we collaborated last year with the DHub project, and we are doing that again this year. And last year we organized a big conference in November here in Geneva in pre-COVID times, under the title "Making the Future of Work Inclusive of Persons with Disabilities," and it was in that context where we launched the report that Carla just mentioned. And already in that report, of course, we focused on the wave of digital jobs that was unfolding, and we came up with some recommendations on how to ensure that people with disabilities would be able to benefit from that wave, how to access digital jobs, how to get digital skills, and all that. We had, during the conference, we looked at some groundbreaking examples of how assistive technologies is making it easier for persons with disabilities, with certain disabilities to get employment and all that. We also reminded everybody about the even increased need for universal design to be embedded in company practices, because with the speed of change in which new products and services are coming out into the market, if we don't ensure that they are accessible from the outset, by the time we make them accessible afterwards, already the new version of the product and services is out. All that was nice and fine. We were thinking in 2020 probably to focus on climate change as one other element which we had discussed at that conference, but then COVID-19 came. And COVID-19 came and increased amazingly, exponentially, I would say, the need for digital skills and jobs. It was quite clear that companies, organizations that were more digitalized were coping better with the new context. But it also reminded us, as Carla put in one of the slides, that COVID-19 is bringing a huge challenge and big question mark in terms of disability inclusion. And it remains and that question and challenge remains. Now, are we coming out of the crisis? Will we come out in a more disability inclusive way, or are we in risk of losing all the progress that we've made over the last years? No? And that question is a question to all of us, no? Because we all have a role to play in hopefully ensuring that we come out of the crisis in a more disability inclusive way. But it's not a done deal. No? The ILO, the International Labour Organization, we organized a summit over the summer with global summit with heads of states and all that. And one of the buzzwords that came out of that summit was digitalization. And there was a clear message from heads of states, from employers, and from trade unions that digitalization was going to play a key element in the way out of the crisis. No? Digitalization, climate change were some of the words that almost every speaker used. And that is why we decided, as Carla was mentioning in her slide, to zoom in this year on the digital economy and how to ensure that persons with disabilities can benefit from the digital economy. And that is exactly the big question that we are asking ourselves and asking also you, because nobody, I think, has the perfect answer. What do we need to do better to ensure that persons with disabilities can be on that wave of digital skills and digital jobs? No? Not just jobs that are by definition digital, but also other jobs that more and more are including digital skills as a core element of these jobs. No? And I think we need to remember that persons with disabilities, the starting line is negative. There is a digital gap among persons with disabilities. We need to have better statistics. I think that is one of the things that we need to improve, to have better statistics on the gap that persons with disabilities have in terms of access to digital technologies and tools. We need to have those statistics in order to monitor over time whether we are making progress in that regard. But if you remember the statistics that Carla showed in terms of lower level of education, lower level of income, lower level of employment, if you bring all of them together, of course, it also leads to a situation where people with disabilities would often not have even the economic access to some of these digital tools. No? We have seen and we have supported specific targeted initiatives. For instance, we have a very interesting initiative implemented in the US, and we are now bringing it to a number of developing countries where we are training persons with disabilities to become cybersecurity professionals, no? As one of the jobs that is where there's a huge mismatch between the demand of the market and the actual availability of professionals. And of course, it makes sense to have persons with disabilities being trained in that, because if they succeed out of that course,
Am I waiting for you to present my
Live is on.
Okay, cool. So as soon as I see it, I will start. But hello, everyone, and I'm delighted to be part of your conference. I'm sorry I wasn't able to connect myself through my computer, so I'm doing this through the phone. I have it. Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so I think we can move to the next slide. That's just my name. So I'm very happy today to talk to you for, I think I have 8 minutes on what we do in matter of diversity and inclusion at L'Oréal, and more specifically in matter of disability. So here you have our vision. I'm not going to read it through to you. I assume you have access to all of our slides. What's important is that you understand it's a long-term engagement, a long-term commitment, and that it's a worldwide initiative. So it's not just in headquarters, it's around the world throughout all of our entities. The idea is to really make sure we have a diverse workforce, but also that we are able to speak and communicate with our consumers around the world and understand the trends and what they expect in matter of beauty products and beauty regimens, and then obviously the communities in which we thrive. So we'll move on to the next slide, which gives you a quick overview of some key milestones. Obviously, this is just a few key dates for the L'Oréal Group. What's important to understand is that this initiative actually started here in France at headquarters on parental leave, and then we very quickly moved on to the topic of disability in the early 90s. We then moved on, and there were certain things like the code of ethics and that was created in 2000 that states our zero tolerance policy on discrimination, for instance. So this all is embedded in our D&I policy, which was then launched in 2005. As you may see, then we partnered with different organizations, including obviously the CSR plus D and the Disability Hub almost 10 years ago. And since then have worked with obviously ILO and other companies in the matter of disability. So the idea is that we tested and launched several initiatives within our group, but also we were very keen on exchanging best practices with other companies to kind of move forward. If we move on to the next slide, these are the key pillars that we've tackled vis-a-vis our employees, vis-a-vis our consumers, vis-a-vis our communities. So there's the gender piece, disability, and socioeconomic and multicultural origins. I won't really focus too much on the first and the third one, as the topic today is mainly focused on disability, but just so you get a better feel for what type of programs and actions we've launched since 2005, it was very focused on recruitment. What happened is that I would say about half of our subsidiaries around the world have to comply to local legislation. So they have to have 6%, for instance, in France, or 7% in Italy of direct employment. But in all the other countries, all the other 30-something subsidiaries where we are present and where we function, there is no legislation. So in 2014, L'Oréal asked all of our teams to at least have 2% of our workforce that would have disclosed their disability. So as there's no law reinforcing this, well, there are different ways of going about it. So we worked with ILO and gave a list of types of disability that they could disclose. An important focus in matter of disability was also making sure that our workplace was as inclusive as possible. So to enable also people to feel that they could actually go beyond the stigma attached and feel safe enough to disclose to their managers, to the HR teams, and in some countries to the medical service or doctors who are in-house. Obviously, disability also, as I said, concerns our consumers. So the idea was to really focus on a concerted effort with all of our digital teams, IT teams, and also the brands to make sure that what we get, the different digital platforms would become in the next few years more and more accessible for our consumers to purchase obviously products, but also to have access to content such as tutorials for people with either hearing or visual impairment. So if we go on the next slide, we have here 3 kind of internal projects that we chose today with Laetitia Novak to share with you. So there was the example of awareness campaigns. So we put 2 here. One is actually an initiative that was launched by our US team, Break the Silence. But today this initiative has basically gone really global. And it's a very simple campaign which enables our employees to disclose their disability. So it's about fighting the stigma, as I said before. It's about making sure that we create that safe space, and also getting some of the leaders in our company, some of them maybe, I guess leaders or people who have a high visibility, to speak up about their disability. So it's about sharing stories. It's about, and then putting into place policies to make sure that everyone feels the sense of belonging within the company. So we have great examples, and in fact, very recently, for instance, in the Middle East, our team just launched a campaign beginning of October to really raise awareness among our employees about this, about mental health. And I'm going to speak about it more specifically in the second piece, but it's usually linked to disclosing. Disclosing is really focused on invisible, I would say, disabilities.
Just talks. So we have.
I'm sorry. Is it a question? No, maybe not. So in terms of awareness campaigns, it's really to disclose invisible disabilities such as mental health. Not only, but it could be
well-being, health and well-being on the society is like exactly like
Please, could you mute your microphones, please? Thank you, Margaret. Go ahead. Thank you so much.
So Break the Silence was in the first pillar of the type of awareness campaigns. We obviously did also disability awareness days, but that's more common. So, and to lead on to the second point on mental health, so I was just giving the example of what we recently saw our Middle Eastern team do, and which was remarkable, and which enabled, so they made a video, they created all kinds of content that could go digital and be seen remotely as given the situation, promoting, so that's the campaign, but there was also specific awareness sessions to raise awareness and educate our employees on what is mental health and why it's important to stand up and why it's okay to disclose and what is the responsibility of companies like ours. And then there's also the opportunity to create employee resource groups. And so we've tested those in the US, in the UK. We're testing them a little bit in different countries of enabling employees to get together and to talk about this and how the stigma attached it again to how they overcame it, and what is the role of a company. And the last example was the digital accessibility, which I touched upon very quickly. But more specifically, the idea here is that this is an initiative that we created, that we launched internally as of 2018. I have to admit, it's something that is complex to put together because we have different internal stakeholders. We have the digital teams we have that are more focused on websites or applications for external stakeholders or clients or consumers. We also have the IT service, which is more focused on internal, like intranet websites. And then we have the D&I topics. We also have the purchasing teams. So to get everyone on board, and mainly we have the brands who actually do create this content. So the idea here is, first of all, since 2018, we've been running different training sessions to make sure that all new digital platform, whether it be internal or external, when they're created from scratch, they have to be digitally accessible. So this is the first thing. The second step, which is what we are today encountering a few challenges with, is to make sure that systematically all the content that we create in our brands, across our teams, is digitally accessible as well, because you may have a website that's accessible, but not necessarily the content. So we're very vigilant on this. And the aim, obviously, our goal is to reach a AA standards for all of our new digital platforms. If we move on to the next slide, I think these are two good examples of the type of initiatives we do externally. First of all, we partner with many organizations, small, large NGOs across the world. And we work with them in many different ways as vendors, but also as partners. And then we actually employ indirectly over 2,452 people with disabilities worldwide. So this is something that we do through our solidarity sourcing team, which is our purchasing team. And the last slide, I hope I'm in good time, is more of our partnership with DHub Europe and the Fundación ONCE. And here you have kind of the history and our history together and our partnership. So I think it's all pretty clear. So I have if you have any questions, I think my presentation just left, but you probably read it. So I hope, so if you have any questions, otherwise I was delighted to be able to share with you these projects.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. I think the presentation went a little bit earlier. Very sorry for that, but I think we could hear all your initiatives and projects. Thank you so much. Please let me go back to Thijs Reuten, Head of Policy at Global Reporting Initiative. I think we missed him. Sorry for that because of the technical problems. So if please, Thijs, are you here?
Yes.
We'll be delighted to listen to you. I'm very sorry for jumping on you, but it is your turn. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Teresa. And actually, it's very nice to come after such an inspiring company to be saying something about the connection of this topic with reporting. Obviously, as a standard setter, GRI is working to help organizations understand their impacts on also the rights of people with disabilities, but in a much broader sense, because it is also about clients, about customers, about people recognizing themselves in the product and in the diverse nature of companies. And to understand all that, you need a thorough way of reporting and addressing these impacts. And that's also why we are very proud to have partnered already in 2015 with the Fundación ONCE, and more recently also with DHub to continue that work on this guide to communicate this commitment and to actually promote clear action to advance rights of people with disabilities. I want to make a few points. I'm not going to talk too much about GRI because I think many of you already know GRI and the thinking behind our promotion of sustainability reporting. We want to empower organizations, as I said, and also the rights of people with disabilities. And GRI standards are also focusing specifically on these rights, not on just human rights or rights of workers in general, but also on these kind of rights. Why is that important? Well, let me give you an example of my personal experience working for the municipality of Amsterdam. I've seen in practice why it's so important to have teams that are diverse, because only when teams are diverse and organizations and companies are diverse and embrace that, that's when they start to recognize the qualities, but also going to look beyond someone's disability. And that is very important, simply because I think, and GRI thinks, that companies and society in general simply cannot afford not to take an active approach on becoming diverse, creating opportunities actively creating opportunities for people with a disability in the broadest sense, because it's a waste of talent. It's a waste. Our economies will suffer not using the professional skills and contributions that people with disability can make from their professional point of view beyond their disability. And that also is a very much reaching out to the clients, to customers, who will recognize the accessibility of services, of products, like fantastically underlined that just now by L'Oreal, of services, products, but also being a truly diverse organization actually makes your organization stronger and more fit for the future. And it's not by any means something very little, because 1 out of every 8 persons, as you all know, has a disability. And only just yesterday, I read in a study guided by the European Commission that that even in a country like the country of the Netherlands, where GRI is based, 25% of people with disability still experience discrimination in work, in the workplace. But as I said, I want to end on that. We think that this is the moment to mobilize stakeholders, to mobilize people within organizations, as also Stefan pointed out earlier, and as also the great example by L'Oreal is showing. This is the moment to reach out, because at this moment, in the upcoming months, the EU is going to reinforce non-financial reporting, is going to have a lot of attention for due diligence, human rights in general, but also to the rights of workers. We as GRI have some standards focusing on that, focusing on rights in the workplace, but also on these elements that I emphasized that are important to the external image of your company, to your customers, to your products, to your services. So I really want to call on everybody to use the position, to use the platform that you all have to actually call for thorough reporting, for transparency on this, because only if we are transparent, only if we really understand our impacts and we help each other in doing so, then it's when we're gonna bring about real change and create actually diverse organizations with space and room for everyone. Thank you for now.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Thijs, for your words. I think we are, we are people with a lot of imagination and solutions when we find a problem. So due to these technical problems, I had the pleasure to introduce you all Inmaculada Placencia. I have her on the phone. So she's the Senior Expert Disability Inclusion Unit at the European Commission. So she will be speaking about the European disability policy and the key challenges towards the 2030 agenda from the European Commission perspective. So I would like to give the floor to Inmaculada. I hope all of you can listen to her properly. Thank you, Inmaculada, for joining through the phone. I hope we can listen to you correctly. Please go ahead, Inmaculada, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me? I hope you can hear me. Well, I'm sorry for the difficulties with the connection. It's very difficult to intervene under these circumstances, but I will try to give you in my 10 minutes allocated presentation. I have prepared a number of key messages for you. First, I wanted to walk you quickly through the issues that we are doing at European level in relation to education, employment, and reduction of inequality, so in relation to poverty at European level, and give you some figures about it. And then I wanted to, linking with goal 11 on inclusive and accessible cities, to link with, to provide you some very recent information about recent initiatives related to accessibility. Let me start by saying that in relation to education, employment, and poverty, the Commission is, since 2010, when we launched the European Disability Strategy 10-2020, monitoring the gaps between persons with and without disabilities with a number of indicators. My phone is ringing now. I need to. Hello. Sorry, I'm giving the speech now. So sorry. Can you call me later? So the point is, sorry, because I have called the help desk to try to sort this out. So I'm sorry for the interruption. So anyway, so we monitor the gap in relation to early school leaving and attainments in tertiary education, but also employment, unemployment, and activity rates of persons with disabilities. And it would not be a surprise for you that there are considerable gaps in all those areas. Also, in relation to poverty, the persons with disabilities are overrepresented in risk of poverty and are underrepresented in employment and education attainments. We also have a number of policies put in place in order to address poverty reduction. We work with the member states. There's exchange of information and so forth. But we do quite a lot through the European semester and through where member states receive information about key actions or initiatives that need to be undertaken in order to improve the situation of persons with disabilities. Conscious of time, I would like now to pass to just to give you what those figures are. When it comes to poverty risk, we're talking about a 10-point gap, 30% versus 20%. On employment rate, we're talking a bit less than 50% versus 72%. And we're talking about early school leaving, there is about 10 percentage points, which is the same that happens in the area of tertiary education. Now, with the European Disability Strategy, the Commission tried to implement the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in the EU. At this moment, this strategy is coming to an end, and we have launched an evaluation to analyze the results, but also to help us to prepare for the future strategy. In this future strategy, the Commission will continue to implement the Convention. I would like to say that we have published a roadmap to receive feedback, and one of the elements that we are taking on board or using as a compass for implementation on one hand is the European Pillar of Social Rights, but also the European the Sustainable Development Goals. I briefly said about goals 4, 8, and 10. Now let me go to goal 11, where it is about, from a disability perspective, on to improve accessibility. This is a key challenge. Beyond legislative measures that the EU is taking in the area of accessibility, I can mention some legislation related to ICT, imposing obligations to public sector websites. We have legislation that puts obligation on public procurement to buy accessible, but we also have got legislation that contains direct obligations to service providers and economic operators that manufacture goods and place in the market goods. In addition to that legislation and the work being done to facilitation of employment, facilitation of the implementation of accessibility by doing standards. Now we come into a situation that legislation needs to yield results for having more accessible products, services, and infrastructure. And I would like to refer to finish to two key initiatives that have recently been published that are linked with the SDGs and sustainability as indicated as is the subject of today's event. First of all, I would like to refer to the Circular Economy Action Plan. It is about ensuring that the European economy becomes more circular, and there it is recognized that ensuring accessibility of certain products contributes to, in addition to contributing to social inclusion, it adds benefits to increase the product durability and reusability. So in this communication, the link between accessibility and sustainability and circularity is stated. This is for products, but also the action plan refers to the role or the importance to ensuring coherence across different policies in this area when we're talking about climate, energy, resource efficiency, management in relation to buildings, management of construction and demolition waste, but also accessibility, and highlights the importance of digitalization and skills. These initial ideas that were in the Circular Economy Action Plan have been further elaborated in the renovation wave. The renovation wave is about using EU funds for one of the key elements is using EU funds for building renovation. And we already had some recommendations being done in that area, but here this initiative talks or indicates that when tackling energy efficiency together with accessibility, buildings are made more usable and sustainable in the context of the aging of the population, because there is a strong correlation between disability and aging. Accessibility is included among the key principles for building renovation, and that refers to persons with disabilities, and it says that accessibility should be ensured to address equal access for the European population, and in particular addressing persons with disabilities. When we go to the section of addressing delivering faster and deeper renovations, again, document refers to using renovation as a way of levering energy poverty, including for persons with disabilities. This is very important because while we are making our buildings more being more energy efficiency, we need to realize that as persons with disabilities, as an average, have higher poverty risks. For them, the issue of energy poverty is a real issue. The initiative also recognizes the need for training on accessibility. I think that now that we are creating a new generation of workers and professionals that are going to work into the greening of Europe and making our buildings more energy efficiency. And as well as in the digitalization, we need to make sure that those professionals also are trained on accessibility, so that interventions in the built environment can bring this double benefit at once, and keeping our buildings more sustainable. Also, when it comes to the initiative launched or announced of the new Bauhaus matching style with sustainability, accessibility is one of the projects, is listed among the projects that, or the aspects that projects should be dealing with. And if with these two examples of the Circular Economy Action Plan and the example of the Renovation Wave, I wanted to bring to you how accessibility is becoming an integral part of sustainability, and how we are highlighting elements and measures in order to have win-win situation when we renovate for sustainability, we're also renovating for accessibility and the other way around. To finish, let me say that other funds, many of the funds that are now available at EU level for the recovery, but also more traditional funds like the structural funds and so forth, allow to spend funding on accessibility, but also the structural funds require already accessibility. To finish, let me go back to the Sustainable Development Goals and refer to Goal 17 on the means of implementation, and address the point that data, as indicated, that data should be also disaggregated by disability. It is essential that we continue to get data and develop and populate indicators that are disaggregated on disability. In these goals where disability is explicitly mentioned, but also in others. For example, we know that in those goals related to health, persons with disabilities have higher unmet needs, so they go less to the doctor, or they go less to hospital than persons without disabilities. So, as I said, to finish, to announce that the Commission will continue to gather data, but also all social surveys in the future will be disaggregated on disability, and this will give us the opportunity to better gather information on the situation of persons with disabilities. All these issues will be addressed in the next disability strategy, the next 2130 disability strategy. We are having extensive consultations with all groups of stakeholders, and as I said, there is an announcement of that initiative on the form of a roadmap in our Europa website, and your views, suggestions, and comments are welcome.
Okay.
I think this is what I have shared in the time I wanted to present in the time available, and I remain in case there are any questions. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you so much, Inmaculada, not only for your words. I think that's very good to have these future initiatives, all the policies you are planning, and for sure we are looking forward to see and to participate in this disability strategy. So thank you for sharing the details. I would like to continue and now go to present the reflections and the thoughts that Hayden Hammersley, the Social Policy Officer at the European Disability some words that has to share with us. So Hayden, if you are there and you can hear me, please, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Hello, thank you for the floor. I hope you can hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you okay.
Brilliant. Okay, just alert me if there's a technical issue at any point. So thank you, everyone. My name is Hayden Hammersley. I'm from the European Disability Forum, and I'm the person who's responsible for social policy work. So I've been asked today to talk to you about how the 2030 agenda can help stakeholders to work for an inclusive future in Europe. So I will do two things. I will talk a little bit about the space that disability has in the SDGs, but not for very long, because I think most of us know that. And then I will talk a bit about how we at the European Disability Forum kind of use the SDGs for our advocacy work, and maybe there are some ideas that also those of you participating today can use in your work. So very quickly, I'll just explain for those who don't know what the European Disability Forum is, but very quickly. So we are an umbrella organization, and we defend the interests of over 100 million Europeans with disabilities. We're an organization that's run by persons with disabilities and their families. And essentially our role is to coordinate advocacy on the rights of all persons with disabilities at the EU level, and to support our member organizations throughout Europe. So why is it that we at the European Disability Forum focus on the SDGs? Well, within the Sustainable Development Goals, there are, of course, specific mentions of disability and persons with disabilities. There are 11 of them in total. So, for example, we see a mention in Goal 4 on inclusive and equitable quality education and lifelong learning opportunities for all. We see the same in Goal 8 on inclusive and sustainable economic growth and full and productive employment and decent work for all, which of course is of special interest for all of the partners of DHub. We see persons with disabilities mentioned again specifically in Goal 10 on reducing inequality within and among countries. So we at EDF, we do a lot of work on reduction of poverty for persons with disabilities, and we look very much at this particular goal. Goal 11 on making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe and resilient and sustainable. This is of course a very big one with regards to accessibility for persons with disabilities and older persons. And yeah, so those are the main ones. But yes, it's the SDGs focus very much on leaving no one behind, but with specific mention to persons with disabilities. So that's why we focus so much on them. So now actually what I want to talk about, so I've skipped over that relatively quickly because I know we're a little bit behind on time, to explain why the SDGs are important in the advocacy we do at the EU level right now. And the main reason for this is because actually the SDGs have become quite important within the European Union's and the European Commission's policy objectives. So we can see this in the fact that when the new College of Commissioners was created, and the at that time the President-elect of the Commission, who's now the President, Ursula von der Leyen, sent out the mission statements to the various vice presidents and commissioners. Within these mission statements, within these letters that she sent to each commissioner, there is a mention to all of them that their work and their mission needs to look specifically at implementing the SDGs. So each of the letters contains the following paragraph, which says, Each commissioner, and here I'm quoting, each commissioner will ensure the delivery of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals within their policy area. The college as a whole will be responsible for the overall implementation of the goals. So this is really important because it means that all of the Commission vice presidents and the commissioners have, as part of their mandate, a clear obligation to work on implementing the Sustainable Development Goals. And this is really important when you're doing advocacy work and you need to remind different decision makers about their obligations. And it's something that's been quite useful for us. And it's good because it means that we know the Commission has at the top of its mind the need to work on the SDGs. So this is really important. So you might be asking yourself, and this is a question we get a lot, is it not more useful, instead of focusing on the SDGs, to instead be reminding decision makers of their obligations under the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, because this is, of course, a legally binding document, and the EU as a whole is itself a states party to the convention. And it's true that, of course, we work very much on the UN CRPD, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. But the difference is the following. Within the, well, at least when it comes to advocacy at the EU level, when we look at the College of Commissioners, there is one commissioner who's responsible for the implementation of the UN CRPD, and this is the Commissioner for Equality, Helena Dalli from Malta. So there's one person responsible for this. And it means that if you're advocating around disability issues in different policy areas, you might get a response that, well, actually, it's this one commissioner who's responsible for the UN CRPD and not me. However, all of the commissioners are responsible for the SDGs. So it's always a really good way of a good hook to use when you're doing advocacy work in different policy areas. So maybe I'll give you, well, it helps us avoid the situation of being sent back to and someone telling us that actually the rights of persons with disabilities aren't their responsibility. It's strictly the responsibility of someone else. So I could give you an example of this and something that would be relevant to the stakeholders working on the topic of employment. If you imagine you're advocating for EU policies facilitating employment for persons with disabilities. At the EU level, of course, you'd be addressing yourself to, at the commissioner level, to Commissioner Helena Dalli, who I mentioned before, because of her work on the CRPD. However, because it's to do with jobs and social rights, you would also have to be addressing directly the Commissioner for Jobs and Social Rights, who is Nicolas Schmidt from Luxembourg. Now, the UN CRPD doesn't fit directly within his mandate, but the SDGs do. And so you can speak to him and his cabinet, and you can say, well, actually, you have a commitment under Sustainable Development Goal 8 on decent work and economic growth, and actually this does come into your mandate. So all of this to say, it's a good way of mainstreaming disability issues into all different policy areas, and it's a way of reminding the policy makers that they do have this obligation at the EU level to work on the interests of persons with disabilities. And this is a hook that we use quite often at the European Disability Forum. And it works quite well because there's a very strong overlap between what we see in the UN CRPD and what we see in the Sustainable Development Goals. So there's always a way of using the SDGs as a hook and then relating them to what's in the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So for example, Goal 1, on no poverty, well, this covers almost everything. There are so many different areas of the CRPD that deal with reducing poverty of persons with disabilities. Goal 4 on quality education. Well, this links very directly with the CRPD Article 24 on education, for example, so you can make the link there. Goal 8 on decent work and economic growth. Of course, this links to the CRPD Article 27 on work and employment. And there are many others that I could go through. We have on our website, on the page that deals with the SDGs, we have a document that makes the link between the SDGs and the UN CRPD. And so, yeah, I will just finish with some recommendations that we have for any organizations doing advocacy work and who want to use the SDGs as a tool for change and for working on the rights of persons with disabilities. The first thing is, of course, just to get familiar with what the SDGs are, to train your staff in them, because it's not something that's known by everybody working for civil society organizations on disability. It's useful if you're working at the national level to find out which part of your national government is responsible for monitoring the implementation of the SDGs. This is just as we have done and that I explained at the EU level, finding out which commissioner, for example, and which DGs are responsible for which part of the SDGs. You should find out who from your national or local government is a focal point for the CRPD, and advocate for SDG awareness there so that they understand the link between the two. And then you should try to find out what other civil society organizations are doing and consider collaborating with them, because as we all know, especially now with the pandemic, resources are scarce, and if you can share resources and share knowledge, your efforts will go a lot further. So since I think we're running out of time, I will stop there, and please feel free to ask me any questions and clarifications.
Thank you so much for your words. Yes, that's correct. We are out of time, but I think it's worth it because due to the technical problems, we wanted to give the space to all of you to listen to you. We had a dynamic session right now, but I'm afraid we ran out of time. That's why I would like, first of all, to thank you to all our participants, the European Commission. Thank you to Inmaculada. She had to disconnect, but I hope you could listen to her and all the initiatives and policies that are upcoming from the European Commission that are very promising and makes us be optimistic. Thank you to GRI, thank you to EDF, the ILO, GBDN, Fundación ONCE, and L'Oréal. I think your wonderful presentations can give us an idea on how we can use the 2030 agenda as a tool for change and for making all the companies to implement strategies and policies that allows us to close that gap of people with disabilities and people without or with no disabilities. We are aware about those, let's say, gaps, and also that we don't not only have the 2030 agenda, but we also have other tools like the UN Convention, right of persons with disabilities. We have to use all the legislation that we have on our hands. So that's very important in order to get closer to our goals. That's also very good to know about the accessibility, the connection with circular economy, and all the policies, the European Union level that for sure has bring us to get the goals of having a more fair, just economy and more inclusive economy as well. So we cannot forget about the just transition when talking about decarbonization of our economy. So something that we have to have present, that all these European policies aims to get that environmental goals, but leave no one behind. So that's very important to have in mind. And also we are looking forward to know and to participate in the future disability strategy. And additionally, something to bear in mind, that this is also very important, and some of you have mentioned that, is about statistics and data, and something that GRI says very often, something that cannot be measured, you cannot improve it. So we need disaggregated data, more statistics, more quality data in order to know an exact picture and to make policies and strategies in order to improve that situation. I would like also to thank our wonderful interpreters. This more than 1 hour and a half, it hasn't been really easy for you. So I would like to thank you for being with us all this time. And for all the participants, I think I can invite you to write directly to the email address of the Disability Hub, DHub. You can also visit the web page, so you can see there this session with the captioning and all the videos with the interpreters. Hopefully we can build up something nice for you and to provide all the conclusions to you all. And yes, I think that's all. I would like to thank you all again. It has been really a pleasure, and I hope to see you very, very soon. I think we grabbed some question that we can directly send to Thijs from GRI regarding the reporting and the social part of corporate reporting. So thank you again. Thank you so much. And I wish you a wonderful afternoon and evening. Thank you.